Welcome to Harmon Garage. I'm Aaron, and it's another week in the life of Harmon Garage. So, as you can see here in the shop, I've got Shorty's frame pulled up into the work area, and just kind of sitting there looking lonely and needing some attention. So, we're gonna give it to it. I got a short week this week. You'll find out why in the next 2 videos, but I got a short week. I only got about 3 days this week to make a video, so I decided that we're gonna bring Shorty back into the spotlight. We're gonna run the fuel system, we're gonna run all the brake lines, put the front accessories and stuff on the motor. We're gonna do an injector upgrade and put our intake manifold on. Front accessories, I think I just said that on. And just kind of keep going with the parts we have until we run out of time. So I'm gonna start collecting things together. I'm gonna set up a table over here, and maybe I'll go and clean off my table that I like to work at. That would be the smarter thing to do. And we'll get the intake out, we'll get the injectors out. We're gonna do a lot of cleaning. I'm gonna do a lot of explaining. I'm gonna tell you a little hack, or I wouldn't call it a hack, but like rather than going out and buying, you know, big expensive fancy injectors, there's other injectors that you can buy that are an upgrade from the stock ones that are gonna help you out a lot with a bigger cam and stuff like what we're doing to this motor. So first thing we're gonna do is get the intake ready, get it cleaned up. We'll go through the injector process, change out the injectors, get the intake put on, and yeah. And then we'll go and do all the other stuff I told you we were gonna do. So let me get set up. Let's get things going right now. All right, I got this intake out. Well, not out, but I have the intake. I'm going to take the fuel rails off of it. We're going to be reusing the stock fuel rails because they are plenty adequate for what we're doing here. So I'm going to take the fuel rails off because we're going to reuse those. But while I have them off, I'm going to take this intake and clean it up the best I possibly can. And then we'll pop the injectors out. We'll find our new injectors. I'll explain what they are, what we got going on. And then we'll put it back together. And in the meantime, I might go ahead and clean the fuel rail too. I definitely will. So, should. As you guys can see, the best way I know to get these factory fuel rails out is to just kind of start pulling up on them and hold steady pressure, and it'll release the O-ring, and then they'll pop out, and then you set it upside down on your table and all the fuel that's still in there runs out of it. So like I told you, I want to get all this stuff cleaned up. I'm going to go drain the fuel out of this. I'm going to clean this intake and this fuel rail the best I can. And then we'll come back with the new injectors, start putting them in. Alright, so I mentioned in the intro to the video that I was going to show you guys a little hack or a little trick that could help you out, possibly save you some money or whatever. Well, here it is. I got all the old injectors out of the fuel rail. I got the intake cleaned up the best that I can. I got the fuel rails cleaned up the best that I can. Now we're getting ready to go back together with it. And I told you we were replacing the injectors, and that's what our little secret hack is going to be. So this is our new injector that we're putting in. This is our old injector that we're taking out. Look exactly identically the same, right? Yes, they do, but they're not. The stock injectors are 25 pounds per hour, and are limited to what kind of horsepower you can run because they're only 25 pounds per hour. So because we're going with the big cam and headers and all the other upgrades that we're going with, this motor is going to be making more power. Now, in the research that my buddy who owns this truck did, the 6.0 with the stock injectors are almost at their full potential of their duty cycle stock. So, being that we're going with the bigger cam and all the stuff that we're doing, we wanted to go with bigger injectors. Well, rather than going to one of the big name brand companies where you're going to spend $500 to $1,000 to get bigger injectors, he did some research and we found out that you can go buy these, which are 42 pounds per hour, which I'm not very good at math, but I'd say that's like 2/3 more, 75% more than what those injectors have. These are stock replacement injectors for a 2004 Chevy Silverado 2500 with an 8.1 liter motor. So you can go, these particular ones came from Napa. Got them here in the box, 2004 Chevy Silverado, 8.1 liter. Napa's part number is right there if you're interested in doing something like this. But changing our duty cycle from 25 pounds per hour to 42 pounds per hour is going to leave a lot more availability for horsepower and tuning and such, which granted you have to upgrade your whole fuel system, but we'll get to that when we get to that because we have a better fuel system than what was stock with this 602. So 6.0 also, not 602, 6.0 also. Anyways, same exact size, same connector. You don't need any adapters, you don't need anything. Fits right back in the stock rail exactly like the other one came out, and you'll be ready to party. So here I have a water bottle with grape soda in it. We're going to put that on the O-ring. It's not grape soda. It's just some 10W30 motor oil. We're going to go ahead and get our O-ring here. Give it a little bit of lube because the last thing you want to do is tear an O-ring when you install an injector, because you don't find out that that O-ring is torn until you go to start the vehicle, and at that point you already have a mess on your hands. So get it lubed up good, steady even pressure. Make sure you get it seated all the way down in there. And then there's these clips. Go on here like so. I don't know if you want to call it a clip, you want to call it an injector retainer, you can call it, honestly, as far as I'm concerned, you can call it whatever you want to. But that's it. So upgraded injectors. We got our retainers, we got that injector back in place. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same process 7 more times. We'll have our bigger, better, more awesomer injectors in here. I got all the injectors in to the rail. and I like to answer questions before they get asked, and I know what a lot of the questions usually are. So I'm sure somebody's going to ask why I use motor oil to lube up the O-rings on the injectors, because they've seen other people that use grease and use Vaseline and use this and use that. Grease and Vaseline and all those things does work. However, it is petroleum based, and if it sits there for a long period of time, it can start to like harden up and whatnot. Which, is that going to hurt anything? No. But if I manage to get some in the hole where the fuel goes in up there, and it starts to like kind of cake up or whatever, harden, whatever you want to consider it, then that's going to get pushed down in that injector as soon as you put fuel in it, or put fuel pressure to it, and that's going to plug that injector tip. So right off the bat, first time you ever start this motor, you're going to have a dead cylinder. Or there's a chance of having a dead cylinder. I'm not guaranteeing that's going to happen, but it could. Now, by using good motor oil and getting it lubed up, that allowed me to get it in easily without screwing up the O-rings, and it's not going to plug up any injectors or anything. If some got down in the injector, it's going to stay wet, and worst case, first time fuel goes through there, it'll push the oil out if there's any in there. So just wanted to explain that real quick before anybody went, why are we using oil and not Vaseline or whatever? That's why. Alright, so next order of business is putting the injectors and the fuel rail back in the intake. So, same process. Oil up all the O-rings. Can't use too much oil. Not going to hurt anything. I'd rather have it running off of it than tear an O-ring. Because like I said, you don't want to find out you tore an O-ring first time you put fuel pressure to this, and you coat your whole engine compartment in gas. It's not a fun situation, especially if you're standing there with your mouth open. Alright, we got those lubed up. We're going to take our rail here, very carefully set it down, making sure that all of our injectors are going in their homes, starting in where they need to be. And then we're going to firmly push on the whole rail at one time to get it down. Do the same thing over here, make sure they're all going where they're supposed to be. Then we'll push down on our rail. Alright, it wasn't that bad. They're all in there. We're going to go ahead and get our bolts back in to secure our fuel rail down. And I didn't show you guys this on the video because I did it after I turned the video off. But before I went and cleaned this, I didn't want to take chances of getting any of the cleaner in any of the electronic stuff. So I took off my map sensor, I took off our throttle body, all that stuff, just so that it didn't get ruined or get anything in it that didn't need to be in it. So just going to go ahead and reassemble all that stuff really fast. And then we'll go over and throw this thing on the truck. Alright, we got that all thrown together. Time to go put it on. Alright, before we go to stepping our intake on, we have to install our knock sensors and our knock sensor harness because it is under the intake manifold. If you aren't familiar with them, they're just little sensors. They screw into the valley cover down here. Nothing really special. Screw them in, snug them up. You don't want to crank on them, tighten them, whatever. You don't buy good ones, they'll give you problems. Yada yada yada. So. Snug that just a little bit. And then we got our harness. Plug that in. Plugs are meant to keep moisture and debris and whatever else out of here, because what happens is moisture and water will get down in here and fill up these holes, and then those sensors will be sitting underwater and it'll cause problems. Now we can start putting our intake on. So I go ahead and scrape all this tape off that I've been using to keep everything clean and to keep paint from getting in the head. Alright, we got our intake over here with our new gasket. With our new gaskets right here. Take those. Alright. You guys might be trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing. There's two types of gaskets for these. There's a type that has a plastic frame on the gasket, which is what I'm used to. And they snap onto the intake. And then you set the intake down with the gaskets on it. These have a metal frame. Seem like they might be a little bit better quality. And they sit over the head bolts in there. And then you set the intake down on them. So that's I was a little confused there for a second, but we got it figured out. Alright, as you can tell, we got it on there. Go through and tighten everything down. You may be asking, well, why are we putting the intake on now when we don't have a body or anything like that? Like, what is the purpose of needing the intake to be on? And very valid question. But before I put the body all back on and all that, I want to run the fuel system. And in order to hook the fuel system up, I need something to hook it up to, which is the fuel rail on the intake. So, getting this cleaned up and done, and it's just another step in the process. I mean, it needs to go on. So, get the intake put on, which will allow us to run our fuel system. And one less thing we got to do later on. Alright, let me get to where our next step starts. I'll bring you guys back and we'll get after it. Okay, well, I may have thought about something now that I should have thought about before I put the intake on, which was, we got a 4-corner steam vent kit that would have been a lot easier to put on without the intake in the way. And yes, you can just take the intake back off and yada yada, but I don't want to do that if I don't have to. So I already got the back on and hooked up, and I think I can probably get the front done the same way and not have to take the intake back off. So it's a little bit more work and kind of frustrating because I didn't think about it beforehand, but either way, no sleep lost. We'll get her done. So that's what I'm doing, 4-corner steam vent. Then we'll move on to what we're gonna do next. Right after Buddy goes home and gets some lunch. Okay, next thing we're gonna do here, in the path of what we're doing for this video, which is running the fuel system and the brake system on old Shorty here. And if we have time, maybe some more stuff. But next thing we're gonna do is install our fuel sending unit and our fuel pump in the tank, because then, like we installed the intake on the motor, we have somewhere to hook fuel lines to on the motor. Now we're gonna install the fuel pump and the sending unit in the tank so that we have somewhere to hook the fuel lines to at the tank. Make sense? All right. We're going with a stock K5 Blazer sending unit. This is a Dorman model number 692-056. Just stock sending unit for a Suburban or Blazer. One thing you may notice about this that's different from like a pickup truck, the tank vent for a Blazer and Suburban is on the sending unit versus being on the side of the tank going to the fill nozzle like it would be on a pickup truck. So we've got our feed, our return, our vent, and then our fill vent. And obviously, other than that, it's just a basic sending unit. So now, on to the cool stuff. Here we have an Aeromotive 11540 Stealth pump, which is a huge upgrade from stock. In tank, like I said, it's a Aeromotive 11540, compatible with pump gas, E85, race gas, center suction. It fits in, it's an in-tank pump only, yada yada yada. You get the point. But this is going to be a big upgrade, and it's going to fit right into our stock sending unit. So this is going to allow us to turn up our horsepower and our tune and go well with our bigger injectors. So simple installation. The only thing that I see that's going to be any different than norm is I have to take this little pigtail that comes with the pump and wire it in over here instead of the factory pigtail, because obviously that's not going to work. So I can get the pump all put together in the deal here first and then go from there. So on an Aeromotive fuel pump, specifically this one, I just read it in the directions. There's this little, they call it a purge vent. You see that little hole? When you install this pump, they say to make sure that that purge vent is clear of obstruction, because if you don't, the pump will never prime and you will burn it up before you get fuel to your motor. So if you're one of those people that buy stuff and just throws it in because you know how to put a pump in and don't read the instructions, I may have just saved you having to buy another fuel pump, but who knows. So anyways, make sure the purge vent is not covered. So get our little sock on there. The air motive pump came with this large centered sock. Our sending unit came with this one. It will not fit onto this pump. So obviously we're going to go with the one it came with. So we'll get this out. We need to set our pump in here. I need to see if our little rubber deal down there, I don't even know if this is going to fit in there. I don't think we need our little rubber deal. I think it's just going to go right in there. But where is our purge fin? Right there. So it is not covered, I don't think. I'm going to go just like that. And we need to figure out how long our hose needs to be, which is about that long. I'm going to go cut this out, and then we'll pull that pump back off. We're going to make sure that our purge vent is not covered up, and then we're going to keep doing what we're doing. Alright, I got our pump back off. I put the rubber deal back in there because I feel better about it having something absorbing it from the bottom of that sending unit. So, and it appears that our deal is okay. So our vent port is out of the way. That is not big enough to go over that. It barely fits on there. There we go. Alright, we're going to cut some of that off. We don't need all that excess. We just need enough for it to be on there. So. Alright. Alright, now we got to rewire this thing, which honestly I could just take and eliminate this pigtail and just wire this pump straight to here. I do not want to do that because if this pump fails and he warranties it or gets another one of the same pump or whatever, rather than having to cut wires and re-butt connect and whatever else, it can just go ahead and unplug it, plug the new one in. So I'm going to go get 2 butt connectors. I think I can. No, I can't. Alright, I'm going to go get 2 butt connectors. We'll cut these 2 off. We'll hook this up, and then we'll be able to plug this in. That's what I got going on. Okay. Let that cool down for a minute. And other than that, we're pretty much ready to go. Got our ring, our O-ring, and that should be all that we need. So I'm going to take you guys on a little vacation over to the truck over there, and we'll start getting ready to put this sending unit in. Okay, before I pull this tape off to open up the hole to where you can put the sending unit in. This thing's been sitting here. It's been inside pretty much ever since I put the tank in. And I try not to do a whole bunch of stuff that creates a lot of dirt and stuff inside, but it just, in general, gets dust all over it, you know what I mean? So, I just want to wipe off all around where we're going to be putting the sending unit in real quick, just to make sure. Try to keep as much contaminants out of the tank as possible. So, that should be good enough. This tape's been on here way too long, and leaving painter's tape on stuff for a long period of time usually makes a mess. Becomes dry, especially if it's out in the sun, gets rained on, stuff like that, which this hasn't been, but it gets baked on there good, and it don't like coming off. Okay, now we got that off. Alright, this is going to be another one of those moments where you guys go, what in the heck are you doing? This is a can of grease, all-purpose Valvoline grease. I'm going to get some of this grease on my finger, and down in here where the O-ring sits, I'm going to fill up this cavity. Like so. Why, you ask? It's a very good question. These O-rings, especially aftermarket ones, have a tendency to not fit. They're not the right size, they don't sit in the groove right, they're not thick enough, all the above. So, you end up getting dirt and water, moisture, dirt, water, moisture, whatever, in your fuel tank. You pack it with grease, water, or grease is resistant to water. So you pack it full of grease, and the grease helps with the O-ring seal and keeps the water and the dirt out. So now I'm going to set my O-ring down in there. That and putting the grease in there kind of helps it stay in its place while you put everything else together. But anyways, got my O-ring in there. Now I'm going to get some more grease and go grease up the top side of that O-ring too. And yes, it makes a mess and yada yada and blah blah blah, whatever. But I'd rather have a mess than water in my gas tank. I mean, crap, you go buy cheap gas, you end up with enough water in your tank anyways. Let's do what we can to prevent excess from getting in there, right? So now we are ready for our fuel pump. Just gotta put that on upside down, I believe I did. Now we just gotta get this over all this, through all this, on top of this, over here. Yeah, that too. Okay, now, same thing here. Try to get this in here without putting too much grease in with it. Get that in. Dang it, I did this totally backwards. I made my locking ring on the top. Hi, today's my first day here. I'm in training, whatever. Some days are just those days. I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I've got a short week this week because of something that you'll find out about in the next 2 videos. And with that, I've got myself under a lot of pressure to get done everything that I need to get done for that. That's all I'm going to say, but mainly, to put it easily, or easiest way possible, I'm stressing myself out pretty dang bad. So I might have to do things that normally would be just simple, easy, ready to go things. I might have to do them 2 or 3 times because just, you know, whatever. It's all getting done right. Something for you guys to laugh about, this idiot doing this stuff. Alright, now all we should have left to do as far as mounting the fuel pump is tap this locking ring in here and tap the locking ring in and clean up our grease mess. Alright, that's in where it should be. A little bit of grease over here, a little bit of tape over here. We want grease up here, so I'm not going to get crazy wiping it off. There we go, fuel tank installed. Now, got to start running our feed line up to the motor. Alright, as I already told you guys, I'm on a limited schedule this week, and I've had a lot of stuff going on, and we're back just getting started for the day on Shorty, and it's already 4:30, and today is the last day that I have to work on Shorty to finish up this video for you guys because of what I have to do. So, that being said, little recap. I think I told you I would show you the steam vent kit up close, and I never did. So, there's that, got that on. This just needs to go up to the radiator or surge tank. I went ahead and was looking through, and I got our clip-on 2.6AN fuel fitting here. And we have fittings that will go on here. And then we have a Corvette style fuel filter with the built-in regulator. And I've already put the fittings on there and our push-in fitting over here. So next thing I have to do is I'm gonna bring this up in here somewhere where it's in a good spot. We're gonna bolt that into the frame, which I need it this way. So we're gonna stick that somewhere in here, wherever it works out good, and it's out of the way of everything else, and it's lined up where we need it to run our fuel lines. And then we're gonna start making our fuel lines and get them run. So I'm gonna go ahead and find a good spot for this there on the frame rail where there's already a hole, so we don't have to drill more holes in the frame. I'm gonna mount it, and then we'll start making fuel lines. All right, I picked a spot that I think is gonna work the best, and got our regulator slash fuel filter mounted. So I'm gonna start at the front up here on the intake manifold. And we're using steel braided 6AN lines. So we're gonna start up here on the manifold, bring our first line down, bring it over into the frame rail, run it to the filter. Then we'll come out of the filter with our feed and our return, come back, come up here, and they're gonna 90 into here and here. The fittings that I have for there are not the right ones. And I'm 99% sure that I'm 100% sure that I will not have the right fittings to hook that end up before I'm done filming this video. So I'm gonna make the lines. We're gonna bring the lines back and we'll mark what they are and set them up on top of the tank, knowing that they'll reach right there. And then when we get the new fittings in, we'll just have to put the fittings on and hook the lines up. So no big deal. So I'm gonna set everything up. We're gonna start making lines. All right. Well, it's just been one of those weeks. I started making this line last night. I was gonna film it, how to put the fitting on and whatnot, and then we were gonna start running it. And right when I started to get all the stuff ready to do that, my wife called me and told me that my water line going from the street to my house burst and water was spraying on my yard. So needless to say, I told her, hey, don't worry about it, we'll have a new pool. No, I hurried up, finished what I was doing, went home, and played on my hands and knees in the mud until probably 11 o'clock last night, and ended up calling a plumber and getting all that taken care of. But regardless, it slowed me down on this project, so now I'm in overtime past the 3 days that I had allotted to do this, to get ready, because I got other stuff to do. And we're here, we're going, we're getting her done. So I've already got the line, this end, this fitting put on the end of this line. I've got it hooked up to our manifold. Now I'm gonna bring it down here and we're gonna put a clamp on it to hold it there. And then we're gonna come over into the frame rail, run it back to where our filter is down here. And then we'll mark it, we'll cut it off, and we'll put an end on there. And I'm gonna film all of that so that you guys can see it like I was originally gonna do before. So that being said, in case I forget to tell you later, the fittings that we had for these are wrong. New ones are ordered and they probably won't be there here this video, but we're gonna go ahead and run our lines back to there and just leave them so we can hook them up when we get the fittings. So let's get to it. I went ahead and got our loop up here on the back of the transmission. Put in, got that tied up. Now we're gonna go ahead and start running this back. I need to make sure that I stay behind this. This is our pivot for our shifter. I need to make sure we stay behind that, and I need to make sure that we stay up high enough that we can run our exhaust down underneath it, and it's not going to be right against the fuel line. So right there should be pretty good. I'll keep it up high here for up here. Find somewhere to put a bolt in. Put another clamp probably right up here. Put another one back here, and those two will probably be enough, and we can hook it into the filter there. So should have done this before I turned the camera back on, but I'll get a couple bolts and a couple clamps, and we'll get that ready. All right. Finally got my ducks. No, I didn't. I got some stuff that we needed to keep moving here. You guys been watching the channel for a while and know me at all, you know that there's a tendency of squirrels running by, and then I start chasing them, and you know, things along that line. And that's kind of what's happened this week. I've kind of spent a lot of time chasing squirrels when I needed to be doing something else. So, but everything that we did needed to be done, so it is what it is. Okay, now I'm going to put another clamp, probably right about here. There's another hole I can use. I don't want to put a bunch of extra holes in this truck, in the frame, because it's already got a bunch of extra ones it doesn't need anyways. So I like to just use what we got. So we're going to tie it up right here. I don't want to tie it up right there yet because we're going to need a little bit of excess to be able to pull out, so I can show you guys how to put this fitting on. So we're going to kind of put this where we want it to be. We'll hold this up here, and I'm going to go get some tape and we'll mark that line, and then I'll show you guys how we're going to do it. Alright, so we got our straight fitting. And I'm not saying this is the right way, the wrong way, or any way, but the way I measure these is I take my hose and the very tip of the AN fitting, I put my line up there, and when I get to the tip, that's where I mark it, because the line stops inside this fitting, and then that screws onto it. So by marking it where I mark it, you're already giving yourself just a little bit extra, and I've got room for just a little bit extra, so that'll be a good mark. What I do is I take some electrical tape here, and I tape it really, really tight around, and then the best way I have found to cut this with a cutoff wheel. Chop saw actually works pretty good, but when you build the lines in place like I'm doing, it's kind of hard to get your chop saw in there. So make the line straight. We're going to cut right down the middle of our tape so it keeps both sides taped for us. Just like that. Now, whenever you get done making these lines, you have to blow them out with air or whatever. I am going to go ahead and get all the lines made, and then I'll come back and disconnect the ends. That's obnoxious. I'll come back and disconnect the ends, and then we'll clean all of them out at that point. So this is the hard part. You cut this stuff and it starts to fray uncontrollably. I leave the tape on there because the fitting pretty much pushes it off, and then you can grab a hold of the end of it and turn it out, tear it out once you get it on. But I gotta go get our wrenches. If you're not familiar with these types of hoses and ends, these are AN fittings on steel braided line. And what you do is you take the fitting apart like I did, and then once you get this side started, you thread it backwards down onto the hose until the hose bottoms out in the fitting, which I'm not going to be able to show you on camera, but if you're doing it, you can see it. Like I can see the end of the hose here. And come on, just a little bit more. There we go. We got it bottomed out. Now, take your other end, get it in there, and get it started. Then we just hold this end, put a wrench on here. Screw this down in there. Closer you get to it being all the way down, tighter it's going to get. Alright, then we'll grab our tape. Get it off of there. Since I already said I'm going to take those back off to clean them and everything, only needs to be hand tight. But here we are. First few lines done. Gonna throw another clamp on it here real quick, and we'll have made some progress. Alright, I'm gonna kind of set you guys up kind of from afar so you can still see what I'm doing, but you're not all up in the face. And I'm not going to tie up any of the lines going from the filter back until I get both lines made. And I'll show you why when we get there, but it has to do with the way that I plan on tying them up. So, yeah, that's it. Let's keep going. Okay, I got those lines ran. Everything's how I want it to be, so I'm going to go ahead and tie them up the same way I tied up the other ones. Then when I get done with that, I'll bring you guys back and show you what I did. Okay, got everything all tied up. We're hooked there, tied up there, runs down here, tied up there, tied up there, goes in our filter regulator, tied up down there to keep it off of the cap mount, tied up there, not touching anything there, tied up there, and then we go to our tank back there. So all our lines are made. They're all tied up. As you can see, I call them P clamps. There's other names for them, I don't know, but I ran them together through the same bolt so it looks neat and keeps them separated. They're not rubbing on each other. Everything's gonna be good. So next thing we're gonna do is run all our brake lines. We got rolls of brake line and we got fittings, and we're gonna make everything. So here's our rolls of brake line. We got 1/4 and 3/16. We got all our ends, all that stuff. So we're gonna get going. I got our rubber hoses. We're gonna start with that. We're gonna put our rubber hoses on the front. We're gonna rebuild our proportioning valve. I'll show you how to do that. And then we'll run our lines from our hoses, our rubber brake hoses, to our proportioning valve. And then we'll go in the back, put our rubber hose on the back. We'll run lines from the wheel cylinders to the block on the hose in the back, tie that up, and then we'll run our line from back there, rubber hose, up to the proportioning valve and terminate it there where it terminates. And then that's all we'll have to do for right now, because until we put the cab on with the booster and the master cylinder, we can't hook those lines up, and I'm not just gonna have brake lines sticking up, because it'll be easy to do it later. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go and start getting parts together, getting set up, and then we're gonna start running brake lines. Okay, now that we moved on to the brakes, I mentioned we were gonna clean up and redo our proportioning valve, which, if you're not familiar, this is a proportioning valve. Mounts up on the front cross member, which I'll show you in a few minutes. And all your brake lines, your two lines from your master cylinder, come down and go in the top. This one goes out to one side in the front, this one goes out to the other side in the front, and this one goes out to the rear. So these have what I'd like, I don't know what the proper name for it is, I guess it's a shuttle valve that runs in here and goes back and forth. And if it gets stuck, it doesn't proportion your brakes. So what we're going to do is get this in the vise better. And we're going to get this in the vise better. And then we're going to undo this fitting on the end of it. And it's got a rubber seal on it, which you want to be really careful with, because we don't have another rubber seal. And there's another rubber seal up here that we want to be really careful with. We don't have a rebuild kit for this. We're just carefully cleaning it out so that everything works properly when we put it back together. This connection on the top here, that's your switch that turns the brake light on and off on your dash if you don't have enough brake pressure or whatever. So we're going to reach in here with some needle nose. There's a little rod right here. We're going to try to pull it out. There's our spring. Oh, that did not feel good. There's our little plastic deal right there that I was trying to get out. I think I broke my hand. And then this end here has a cap on it. And there's a little metal rod that slides back and forth in there. So I can't really get this any further apart than this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it over outside in a drain pan in a highly cleansed area. And we're just going to flush everything in here, every orifice, everything, everywhere. We're going to flush it all out with brake parts cleaner. And then we can maybe get it to move back and forth with some air. I'll find out. If we can, I'll show you. If not, I'll tell you. And we'll go from there. All right. As you may be able to tell, It's daylight outside. Not dark like it was just now when I got done talking to you. And the reason behind that is I was messing with that proportioning valve, and I had put in a really long day, and it was frustrating me, and things weren't going good. And when stuff like that happens, you just stop. At least that's what I've found to be best, because if you keep pushing it and keep going, you either really get yourself stressed out, frustrated, or you do something wrong or make a mistake, or you ruin something. So I went home, called it a night, came back this morning, started messing with that proportioning valve again, and I didn't film it. And I didn't film it for one reason. That reason is because if anybody asks me what the procedure is on rebuilding a proportioning valve and cleaning it out, I'm going to tell them go down to the store and buy a new one. So it's just not worth it. They're not that expensive. I got it back together the way it's supposed to be. I tested it. All the functions work properly. Everything is good, but I don't want to show anybody else how to do it, because it's really, there's two pieces that have to go in there just perfect. And if they don't, it can fail on you. And I don't want that liability of showing somebody how to do that and then them not getting it right and then having it fail. So I know this one's right. Like I said, I tested it. Everything works good. In the meantime, I scarred up the paint that was already on it. So we got it out here. We got a new coat of paint on it, and it's a little on the chilly side this morning. So I heated it up with a heat gun, painted it, and we're kind of sitting there waiting for paint to dry. So in the meantime, we can get started installing rubber lines or rubber hoses. We can do our lines in the back. We can do our rubber hoses in the front, all that. And you know, we can do everything that we need to do that doesn't require hooking up to the proportioning valve. And by the time I get that done, the proportioning valve should be dry. So I'm going to start at the back. As you can see, I didn't mount this completely. I just put it on there, stuck the bolt in it, because I wanted to make sure we were gonna be able to get a nice bend there without that being messed up. And then I have the original bracket that the hose mounted on right here. It's all cleaned up and painted already, but it cannot go back in its factory location because its factory location was back here, and we can't do that no more because of our gas tank and stuff. So my thought process is, I think I can take this and put it like right here. I'm gonna go get the other camera set up, aiming in that general area, so you guys can actually see what I'm doing, because when I'm trying to use both hands to do something and film with a camera that I'm holding, you end up not seeing anything. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, back to what I was thinking. So I have our bracket. I've got our tab to hold the line on through the bracket. This pops in there like it should. And my thought is, I'll mount this here like so. We'll have a good gradual bend. It'll come back on an angle, pointing towards inside the frame rail, which will make it a lot easier for us to run our line to up to the front. We're not going to have to snake it around the lock to get it in there. Now, I already have a hole, one hole in the frame here. One hole's not going to be enough to mount this, because if I just do one, it's going to be able to try to pivot, and we don't want that. So I'm going to go get a bolt, put it in. Oh wait, That's crazy. They're off by like the slightest little bit of actually just lining up. So, anyways, I'm going to use one of the holes that's already there. I'm going to drill another hole. We're going to bolt this on. We'll get our hose hooked up. We'll get this tightened down. Then we can start running our actual brake lines here in the back. I got an idea. I can save myself a lot of effort drilling this if I just slot this one hole. And slotting that hole is going to still give us exactly what we need. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, give me a second to go slot a hole, and we'll be back. Okay, I got our bracket all securely mounted down in there. It's good and tight, not going anywhere. And I was able to get our clip in, and somehow or another I got the hose to lay out in a better configuration. And it's got plenty of movement up and down. So that's a plus. Now, in all that time messing with that and everything else, proportioning valve had time to dry, so we got that knocked out, and it's mounted, and I went ahead and put the rubber hose on this side. Now I'm going to bring you guys along with me while I put the rubber hose on this side, because it's a lowered truck. If you watch the channel for a while, you know what I'm talking about, you know what's going on. If not, it's gonna be something new for you. And I'm gonna go get the other camera to show you, but we'll get this set in here real quick. If you set this line up here like so, it hits the ball joint. And you can't get the ball joint nut loose without taking the brake hose off. And you can't mount the brake hose. So I'm gonna show you guys what we do to fix that. We'll get this hose mounted in there. Then we'll start running some hard lines. Okay, so what I do, I know that I need it to be down more and out more. So I'll go ahead and put this in my vise. And you want to be really gentle when you do this. You don't want to go all Incredible Hulk on it and just Hulk smash, you know. Because you kink this hose, then you don't have any brakes. Makes sense, right? So I just take and I always goes easy when I'm not filming. I already did the other side and nothing to it. Okay, so just take this, put a little downward pressure on it, get it bent a little bit. And then we need to come this way a little, okay? Now we got that, and if you look at that, it's not restricted, it's not kinked off at all, you can't even tell I did anything with it. So now we'll bring it back over here, and I'm just not gonna get all happy with my banjo bolt or nothing, I'm just gonna bring it over here. We're gonna set it in place. And make sure we have clearance and we're not hitting anything, which we do. Now, my best suggestion to all of you, if you're going to do what I just did, perfectly safe, nothing wrong with it, it ain't no different than bending the brake line, which we're about to do here in a minute. When you go to do it, Make your bends in small increments. I've done enough of them. I know about how much it needs to be bent and twisted. And so I just kind of do it, and usually I'm close and only have to do it one time. But if you've never done it before, you're going to want to take it easy and go slow, because just keep in mind, you can always bend it more, but not as easy to take it back away. So I'm going to get a wrench, tighten that down, and then we'll hook up the other side. Alright, gonna bring my hose up here, and it's got a little tab that hooks into the control arm. And then I've got where it comes through the frame here, and there's a little, I guess I should have showed you before I started, but it's just a little sheet metal nut that goes on there. I've learned in my experiences that 60% of the time, those nuts are missing, because honestly, all kidding aside, they're kind of a pain in the butt to get off when, you know, you got fenders and motors and everything in the way. And most people, once they get them off to put the new hoses on, they don't put them back on. I always do, because otherwise you just got your hose hanging on your hard brake line, and realistically it's putting a bunch of stress on stuff that doesn't need stress on it. So that, and they came with them, so they need them. That's how I look at it. Alright, got that in. This takes a 15/16. I didn't grab it when I just went over and got tools for this, because I'm an idiot. Since our proportioning valve is done and dry, I think I'm going to go ahead and run my 1/4 inch line from the back all the way up here to the front, because that's the one that I'm dreading doing the most, just because you got one big hard line you got to try to snake through everything, so I'm kind of dreading it the most. So I think I'll go ahead and run that one first, and then once we get that done, we got a short line from here to here, a short line from there to here, and then we got the 2 lines across the back. So let's get to it. Okay, we got our 1/4 inch line. Now we're only using 1/4 inch to run all the way from the front to all the way to the back. From the factory, it came with 1/4 inch line from the front all the way to the back, because that allows a larger volume of fluid to get to the back, because this one line is feeding 2 sides. In the front, they both have their own individual lines coming off of the proportioning valve, so it's only got 3/16 up front, and once you get back here to the differential, it's only got 3/16 going from the block out to the wheel cylinders. So 1/4 inch, front to back, we're going to run it right now. There's lots of ways you can do this. We ordered a roll of this line, and it works. You got to straighten it all just to rebend it, but hey, comes in a roll. You cut off the size that you need, you put ends on it, and then you can make your whole run in one piece, where if you just got longer lines, you'd have a bunch of unions in everything. So just going to take a little bit of time here, straighten this out. And once again, this is the line that I'm dreading. This is going to be the hardest one because it's so long. So we're just going to knock it out and get it done. So I'm going to unroll this, uncoil this so that it reaches from here all the way up to about 3 feet past the front, because we're going to have to put a 90 on it and run it over to our proportioning valve. So Another thing about doing it this way, if you guys are thinking about running your own brake lines, if you're not familiar with using a flaring tool and flaring brake lines, this may not be the way to go for you, because you have to put flares and fittings and all that on every line. Where if you buy shorter pieces, you know, they've already got the ends on them. You just got to kind of bend them where you need them and then put them in. So, something to think about if you're planning on doing this yourself. So, I'm not going to get it perfectly straight. It'll never happen. And it doesn't really matter because I got to come out of the back, go down, go forward, go down, go forward, go up, go forward, go down. So it's going to have a bunch of bends in it anyways. I'm just trying to get it straight enough. And then we'll run it kind of, you know, haphazardly, get the right flow and everything. And then when we go to put our P-clamps on to hold it in place, then we'll fine tune it where we want it to be. So we're getting there. We're probably about, I don't know, somewhere between a third of the way and a half where we need to be. Okay, we got enough length to get it back here where we need it. So now, we've already got our fitting. I tested it on both sides to make sure it was going to be right. But I'm going to take this, put it up here like so. And that will get us where we want to be, right there. Got my flaring tool out, and for those of you that don't know how to flare and you want to figure it out, have no fear. I'll do this up close so you can see. And in a minute. So we're going to get this one done. And, maybe if I have a 1/4 inch thing. There we go. Anyway, I had one. This wasn't in that box. Okay, here we go. Now, when it comes to flaring stuff, there's 2 ways you can do it. The best way is to put this deal here in a vise, and then make your line in the vise, and then bring it over and put it on the vehicle. All fine and dandy, unless you're making a 12-foot long line and it's not really feasible to take it over and put it in a vise and do it that way. So I do them even when I am just making a regular small line. I usually just do it by hand, standing there holding it. It's just the way I've always done it. But another thing I think I might have already mentioned, but just in case I didn't, make sure you got your fitting on your line before you flare the end. There's nothing worse than having to cut the flare you just made back off because you forgot to put your fitting on. So. Alright, got that where it needs to be. I may have to, been a while since I flared anything. That looks pretty good if I may say so. May have to straighten this line back out just a little bit to get our fitting where we need it. Of course, wasn't paying attention. I'm going to have to straighten it all the way back out to get our fitting where we're getting up there now. Okay, tighten that line down, and then I'm going to get some P-clamps, and I'll go along and string this all the way down and get it tied up to the frame, and then I will bring you guys back when I get up to the front, and I'll show you up close and personal how to do a flare in case you don't know. And we'll get the other end of this line hooked up at the front. Okay, I got it all tight there. I got our bends coming over here, going down. It's tied up right there, it's tied up right there, tied up right there, tied up right there, tied up right there. And then we got it, I got it running kind of loose there because there's a lot of stuff around. But it's tight enough that it's not going to bounce and make noise or rub against anything. Then I got it tied up right here. We made our bend here. We're going to run it along here. There's another hole right here. We'll tie it up right there. And then we're going to cut it off and flare it and hook it in right there. So I just wanted to show you guys what I had done. So it's looking pretty good, I think, and we're going to bring the cutters over, cut that, bring our flare tool up here, flare it, and the line that I've been dreading and the one that I think is going to be the worst will be done. So here we go. Okay, for those of you that work on cars and stuff and know how to cut lines and know how to flare lines and know how to run lines, this may not necessarily be for you, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that's watching this video because they want to learn something, or they just don't know what they're doing, or they've never seen it before. So this is a tubing cutter. Anytime I'm doing any kind of metal fuel lines, metal brake lines, anything like that I'm going to have to flare, I always use a tubing cutter. It makes life a lot easier. You go through and cut it with like a cut-off wheel or something like that. Leaves burrs on it. gets crap in your line, just makes it a pain in the butt. So you just take this, and there's little rollers in there. Put it down on the rollers, snug it down. Little blade on there, run it around. Starts to feel loose, you give it another little turn to the side. Usually doesn't cut that easy, but it did that time. So I don't have a new fitting for right here, so I'm going to use the old one that was in the proportioning valve. It's an odd size fitting. So I'm going to clean it up real quick, and then we'll come put it on here, and then we'll flare this line. I've been sitting here going through this whole process of crimping this line, talking to you guys, explaining it all to you, everything else. Never turn a damn camera on. So anyways, we got our fitting on our line. We got our crimp halfway done. I just got to get this little guide deal out, and then finish our crimp. This was going to be the crimp that I showed you guys, like all up close and personal, and how to do it. And since my camera operator, that's me, forgot to turn the dang camera on, I guess we'll have to do it on another one. But anyways, it's the second crimp I've done in a long time. Turned out pretty dang good too. Pretty impressed with the crimping machine today, because I know it ain't me. Alright, get this in here, like so. Get our fitting started. Maybe. There we go. And then we can bend this line down here. And I gotta get a wrench for that too. Okay, so tighten this up. Put one more clamp on. And the hardest line that I was really dreading doing is done. So that's a good deal. All right. And we're all out of clamps. And I don't. Hey, I'm going to be able to fit my impact in there to run it in. Cool. Alright, well, I'm going to put this last clamp on. And then since we're already up here and I already got all the tools up here, I'll go ahead and make our front lines real quick. Okay. I got the line from this side bent and ran, and looks pretty good. Next, I got to do this side. I'm going to go from here to the top up here. Should be a pretty straightforward, easy line. It's a straight piece with a 90 and a 90. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to crimp this end. I'll show you guys how that goes. And then I'm going to put a 90 on it after I crimp it. And then I'm going to I think I'm going to cut the end of that off. I don't really like that end. Anyways, I'm going to crimp it with a fitting. Now, always remember, don't forget your fitting before you start crimping or flaring, whatever you want to call it. So we're We got our end on already. I'm just cutting this because I don't like it. Alright, that's a lot better. Okay, now, I don't know the names of all these things that you use. They're just the things that you use. This little dilly bopper is the thing that does the thing. I call this the clamp. So on here, you got 3/16, quarter, 5/16, 3/8, half, yada yada yada. We know we're using 3/16 line, so we're going to put it in the 3/16 groove. Close the clamp, but leave it loose. Now we're going to take our little thing that does the thing and lay it flat on the clamp next to the line. And we want to make sure that the line's protruding through the clamp the same distance as the base of that little deal, which it is right there. So we're going to go ahead and run this clamp down. Put that in there. I'm going to refer to this as the press. There's a little divot. There's a little tapered divot in the end of that, and there's a cone on the end of this press. So you put that in there. Once again, if you got this in a vise, it makes things a little bit easier on you. I'm getting old, but I still got some pretty tough hands, so I can hold it. So you take the clamp, you take the press, and you press the deal that does the thing all the way down until it's flush with your clamp. Then you take it and you back it back off. Move it over out of the way. And then you sit here and fight for like 30 minutes and try to get this little thing that does the thing back out of here. I don't understand why they make it the way that they make it, but they never want to come out. I pry on them with screwdrivers and pull on them with pliers and everything else, and they just get stuck in there. And then every once in a while, ask me how I know, you be a little bit too aggressive with it trying to get it out, and then you snap the little thing off, and then your line that you're making becomes useless, and you don't have a little thing that does the thing anymore. I may know somebody that that's happened to. His name may rhyme very well with mine. Come on. I'm afraid I'm going to break this thing off. It's already bending. I've already pried on it a whole bunch on the other lines. And it just so happens to be the smallest one. Come on, I need you to do like 5 more flares. Why has everything got to be so difficult this week? I don't get it. This breaks, I'm done. Like, I don't have another one. Got it out. Now, after all that BS, now if you look at this, it took that pipe and it smashed it out. It pushed the top down and pushed that out, which made what I like to call a bubble. So then we're going to take the cone on the end of our press. Make sure we got our press square with the clamp. And then we're going to take this and we're going to run our press down until it's tight. We're going to take our press back off, like so. Gonna take our clamp off, like so. Now we have pretty good looking double flare. That is dang near perfect, if I may say so myself. Now what I'm gonna do, I got this little bender thing here. And I'm not doing this the way it's meant to be done, but I want to put a really hard 90 on my line. Maybe not that hard. And I'm gonna get it in here, like so. And kind of, sort of, maybe get my line started. Doesn't have to be started, but close. So then what I'm gonna do is, I know that right here, if you guys can see where I'm pointing, right here is gonna have to be the center of my bend. My bend's gotta come down here. And I need it to be at least 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna go from my center of my bend, and I'm gonna come out about 1.75 inches, which is gonna be over here where my hand is. And I'm gonna cut that off. Sorry guys, there's not a lot of room in here to show you everything that I'm doing, but I'm doing my best. So, all right, got that cut. Now, this is gonna be here. That's gonna bend, go down on there, yada, yada, yada. So, I need it to bend right there, facing this way. So that's gonna go there. And gotta make that bend a little bit shorter. Right about here instead. Put that there. This is gonna go about like that. It needs to be about that long, and that should give us enough room to crimp there. So now we'll cut this off again. And yes, we're wasting little pieces of line, but I would rather waste 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch here and there than waste, you know, a foot, 1.5 feet, because I cut the thing too short to begin with. So that's my premise. You may not agree with me, but I agree with myself. And last time I had a company meeting, everybody decided that was okay. So that's what we did. Now I gotta find my tool that pisses me off. First off, I need to not be an idiot. I almost did it, guys. You almost saw me screw up. And it would have made me really mad because I've done it a bunch of times and I hate it. Almost did my flare without my dang fitting on there. No joke, it would have really upset me. You'd have seen me get mad. Yeah. Alright, so we're gonna measure that again, right about there. Snug that down. Snug that down. Put our, now it doesn't even want to go in the dang hole. There we go. Should just had a little lip or something on it. I'm sure it'll be hard to get out again. Dang it. That sucker broke off, but I don't see it in the line. Oh yeah, it's in there, right there. But I think I just blew it out to where I can get it out. Come on. I think I can probably grab it with a pair of needle nose. I'm gonna get this out and finish this flare. I already showed you guys how to do the flare thing. Then I'll bring it back and we'll hook this line up. Alright. Got the broken off piece out. Yay! Alright. I'm gonna say it does look pretty good. We're starting off on a round roll. Trying to get it straight as I can. But I'm happy with them. They look good. So all we got left to do is run the ones from the soft line to the wheel cylinders in the back. And there's even less room back there to show you guys what I'm doing. And I already showed you how to do a flare, and I kind of show you how I cut and bend the lines and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go back there and knock those 2 lines out. When I get done, I'll grab the GoPro and I'll come up here, show you these lines a little bit more close up and how decent they look, and we'll go back and show you the lines in the back and that they're done. And then I think it's time to give away a t-shirt, so hang tight. All right, brake lines are done. Fuel lines are done. All the plumbing for as far as the frame goes, done. So, starting to get dark. Maybe if I pull this door down, I can get a little bit better light. Not really, but here's our line from our proportioning valve. This top one going in the end here is our one that runs to the back. We got this one down here. 90s goes over, 90s over there. Comes back, goes into our hose. Over here, we got this one, comes up, 90s, goes over, 90s into our hose. I already showed you guys the line. All tied up, running all the way to the back. We got our holder for our soft line, our rubber hose, and then here's our line going to the left side, and here's our line going to the right side. Took a lot of work, and I'm tired, and you guys will find out in the next 2 videos why I had a short week this week and why I've been going nuts and so stressed out and everything else. So it's done. I'm happy. That's one thing that I don't mind doing, but it's just time consuming and not real fun. And I'm really particular about how things look. Anyways, I'm gonna stop blabbing. I told you guys in the last video that I would announce the green and silver evergreen t-shirt giveaway in this video. And I asked you guys to go in the comment section, put "I want that shirt," and tell me where you're from. And a lot of you did. And I'm super thankful for that. And I wish I could afford to give every single one of you a shirt. And I wish I could afford to do these giveaways all the time. But it's kind of a random when I can do it, I do it thing. And I did the random comment generator, and I have a winner. Is it you? No. The winner of the green and silver evergreen t-shirt giveaway is Richard Schultz from Connecticut. Richard Schultz from Connecticut. All right, we got that out. So if Richard, my email description, or my email, man, you guys, I'm over it. I'm so sorry. My email is in the description. My Facebook and my Instagram pages are in the description. Send me a message on one of those 3 platforms. Tell me, hey, I'm Richard from Connecticut, and this is what size I need, and this is my address, and I'll get your shirt sent out to you, and life will go on. So anyways, Shorty has made some progress. We're all happy. And I've got a couple hours to get a lot of stuff done before our next adventure. So that's gonna do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you next time.